Now you can do that.
Okay, it's 5:30. Let's call the meeting to order. Up first is updated agenda. How come I can't see anybody now? Okay, who's that? Oh, here we go. Okay. Update agenda, nothing? Nope.
Mike,
Bruce, huh?
Annie, do
What?
we have to put executive session?
Yeah, that's gonna be 5. Well, right, Mike? We were gonna just announce it.
Yeah, it's gonna be part of number 5.
Okay.
That's weird. I can't see anybody now again. Okay, so public comment, Bruce, do you have anything for us? Bruce Webster?
Nothing for me, Jeannie. Thank you.
Annie? Yeah,
Annie.
okay. And so now we're gonna go to Allison. Hi, Allison.
Hi, can you
There
hear
you
me?
are. Yes, I can. I can see you too. Yay.
Yes. And I'm very sorry that I didn't join you last meeting, and I am still playing catch up. But my goal is to finish up the full draft this week so that we'll be able to talk about it in the coming meetings and then
Okay.
set the fine dates and start, hopefully the adoption process over this summer. One of the things that I realized that we haven't talked about is regarding flood resilience. And before I introduced any substantive changes to your flood resilience element, I did want to have a conversation with you about that. How many of you are familiar with Act 121, Vermont's Flood Safety Act?
Not me.
Okay. So I think a lot of attention has been focused on Act 181. So people have been paying less attention to the Vermont Flood Act. But the Vermont Flood Act is basically this. About 75% of our financial damages from flooding originate from fluvial erosion. That's because we live in a mountainous terrain, narrow valleys, traditional patterns of development along streams that have historically been straightened. They're trying to reestablish that equilibrium. For years, the Department of Environmental Conservation has been encouraging communities to adopt river corridor regs. And those are areas where the river is likely to move over time. And those areas are not depicted on flood insurance rate maps. The flood insurance rate maps are really focused on inundation areas where the river rises, spills its banks, and then the water stays in the floodplains for a while until it filtrates into the soil. The erosion areas are areas where the stream bank is either aggrading or degrading and can collapse, sometimes in one dramatic moment during a significant storm event, and change its course and cause all kinds of damage. So starting in 2028, the state is going to start regulating development in those mapped river corridors. And those are streams that have a drainage of 2 square miles or more. And the basic regulation is if you are you're not going to build any closer than what's already there. The flood maps, the fluvial erosion, the river corridor maps will be adjusted for some downtowns and village centers that are already built up, because clearly that kind of regulation isn't going to work. But I did want to let people know that change is coming. The other thing is that traditionally our approach to managing flood risks has been to administer flood regs. And those flood regs are based on those FEMA flood hazard maps, which are super sketchy, by the way. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're basically consist of big gray blobs that are hard to interpret.
Ours is really old.
They're all old as the hills, and we're all getting updated maps. Not necessarily new data, but data that's going to be run on 1 foot contours instead of like 20-foot contours. So hopefully it would be easier to interpret. And they're also going to be superimposed on digital layers so that you will be able to actually see what's underneath them. Like right now, you just basically see a series of black lines and like a couple of streets but there's not much else that you have to go by. So when you get the maps, FEMA is 2 years after the release of the maps, FEMA is going to review your regulations for ongoing compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. But you have an opportunity there to make your regulations stronger. Right now, the minimum standards really are geared to protect the value of the insured structure. So the regulations say, for example, if you're going to build in a floodplain, you can fill in floodplains as long as you don't raise the base flood elevation, like the area in the floodplain outside of the actual stream corridor by more than a foot. And the base flood elevation is like how high the water can get in a historic flood. That's actually like raising the base flood elevation by a foot is a lot. If you do like flood insurance, like flood studies and hydraulic modeling, an extra foot of standing water in a flood event is pretty substantial. Just 7 inches of standing water in your basement is bad enough, but by an extra foot, that's so the new regulations that are being promoted by the Department of Environmental Conservation are if you fill in a floodplain, you need to create compensatory storage somewhere else so that the floodwaters don't go up and don't affect other properties when you are filling in your floodplains. So that's basically like the gist of Act 121 in a nutshell. In the past, we've had this funding strategy that called the Emergency Relief Assistance Fund. And that's when you have a presidentially declared disaster, the state gives you money to help fill the gap that FEMA doesn't cover when you get damaged infrastructure like roads and bridges. And for the past 12 years, the requirement has, if you wanted to receive level funding from the state, you would have, 4 measures in place. And one of them was to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, which you do. For several years now, there's been an incentive that you would get more money from the state if you were to adopt regulations that address river corridors and included these enhanced standards. But since they're going to become part of law from Act 121, it's not really clear what's going to happen to the Emergency Relief and Assistance Fund. So I know your existing plan talks about what they call ERAF. I think it might be kind of short-sighted to talk about it in the update. So that's it in a nutshell. I can, I can also direct you to our draft flood resilience element in the regional plan that tries to distill some of these concepts from Act 121. But I think that it would make sense to focus on the concepts of Act 121 rather than just, taking note of whether or not you participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, whether or not, you have a level funding reimbursement rate from the Emergency Relief and Assistance Fund. And it would make sense to focus on how Act 121 will be implemented and what it means to you. So does that make sense? I know it probably doesn't, but
It does to the person who just did all the FEMA work and had to deal with the disaster that we did not
Okay.
get. We did not
Um,
qualify for the maximum. Actually, because our hazard mitigation plan was expired at the time of the
Ow!
flood, we lost
Yeah.
out on that as well. So we
Okay.
lost about $25,000 by not having these things in place. So
Yeah.
I do think,
Um,
I definitely think we should include this.
So here's the part that I'm kind of struggling with here. The way that the state of Vermont has provided funding in the past is if you have a disaster and your roads and bridges are damaged, they come in and they help, pay for that. They pay for the damage. With the exception of like providing a match on this last round of hazard mitigation grants, the state money has really not gone towards mitigating disasters beforehand, removing risks that actually, that are going to exacerbate future losses. And other states have been proactive in doing that, like Minnesota and Washington State and Massachusetts. They've actually provided funds to mitigate hazards in advance so that they could reduce losses in the future. We've always waited for a disaster declaration so that the towns could apply for funds, apply for hazard mitigation grants, and they use that local hazard mitigation plan as a way to do it, but they have to wait for federal funds. Now, the problem is when you have a disaster like what happened in the flash flooding in Sutton and in Burke and in East Haven last summer, they had a significant amount of damage, but the federal government did not declare a disaster. So they were out of money. All of that was on them. So maybe it makes sense if we can't always be sure that federal funding is going to be there to clean up the mess, maybe, and we can't be sure that federal funding is going to be there to mitigate the losses, maybe there needs to be a better way to prioritize what state funding we have. Maybe it makes sense to focus on hazard mitigation, like projects where you upsize culverts, projects where you take buildings out, like repetitive loss structures out of the flood hazard area, or maybe even projects where you acquire land that you know is necessary for storing floodwaters or stabilizing a stream bank and just permanently conserving it. That approach in other states has actually worked. They've, by conserving like natural flood retention resources like floodplains and stabilizing stream banks, they've actually been able to prevent or at least lessen the damage in future risks and future flood events. And maybe that's the way we need to start thinking about it too. So,
I have a question.
yeah.
Where's this money going to come from for a town to buy out a house that was in a floodplain area and was actually flooded? And you're saying that the town should be able to buy these properties and
Yeah.
so that they can't rebuild on that spot again? Where's all this money coming from?
Well, in the past, we've always waited for presidential declarations to make that happen. But if we're gonna see fewer presidential declarations, how are we gonna do it? So, what other states have done is to set up state-funded programs, and they're always at the mercy of the legislature. I mean, that's just the reality. But they have their own hazard mitigation programs. And so towns would be applying for funds. It's still a competitive program. Just like you would be applying for federal funds, but maybe you could apply for state funds. And maybe it makes sense, instead of relying on state funds just to clean up the mess when it happens again and again, to try to prevent those losses from happening in the first place. That's all I'm saying. And I know that there's limited state funding available as well. There's always going to be limited funding around. But these flood hazards aren't going away. And
So
it's not going
this
to
could
get
actually-
easier for our town.
No, and this could, this new stuff that they're trying to get together and pass, this is going to affect probably our town centers and what we're going to be able to do and can't do anymore.
I don't really think so, because the river corridor maps are going to be adjusted for the built environment. So I don't really believe that to be the case. I mean, we all realize that our downtowns were all built along streams because they relied on stream power. And to do that, historically, we straightened them, and it's had long range consequences. So no, we're not going to relocate our towns and village centers. I mean, because that's just not realistic. So I think that's why you would be seeing a revised river corridor map. It hasn't been released yet, but that would certainly be taken into consideration. Stuff that is already built should be accounted for. I mean, you're not going to remove the built environment.
But this could affect stuff that's already built. This could affect the insurance process as whether or not you can get a mortgage and be forced to get insurance where this certain area you didn't have to before. And now you're going to have insurance because they're going to change this corridor. And now these people who want to buy something through mortgages, the banks are going to require this insurance be in place, or they
Okay,
won't give you a loan.
Okay, so there are two things here. The
That's
banks
just
are,
want to be clarified here.
no, I'm glad that you brought that up. So there's two things to keep in mind here. Banks, anybody who offers a federally backed mortgage is required to ask for flood insurance if your property is in a mapped on a FEMA floodplain map. So the FEMA floodplains are what they go by, right? If your property is already on the FEMA map, they have to require insurance.
Right.
Banks,
But you said
but
that
hold
some of
on,
these
hold on,
FEMA
hold on.
maps.
But hold on, I'm not done. I'm not done. The river corridor maps are a separate map. And legally, they don't trigger that requirement for a federally backed mortgage. So it's quite possible that even if you were subject to flood risk, and we all are. I mean, I used to think that I live on a ridge, and I used to think that I wasn't subject to flooding until my house flooded in 2023. But you would be not required to get flood insurance, but like since your town participates in the National Flood Insurance Program, you could probably buy a policy at a preferred risk rate because you're not in the floodplain, but maybe in the river corridor. There's one wrinkle to that. Banks can use discretion when they're giving you a loan. So if they think that you're in a flood risk, or if you have experienced a flood in the past, or, it just doesn't feel right to them. They can use discretion and make you get flood insurance anyway. And I've seen that happen in Peacham where they have no FEMA maps anywhere. They had no floodplains mapped. But they had a house, two houses along streams where the streams did jump their banks, like because it was fluvial erosion risk, and they ran through the houses, and in one case caused $100,000 worth of damage. So the homeowner went to the bank to get a loan, and they said, "Well, look, you've already flooded, so we need you to get flood insurance." So banks can use discretion, but it's not necessarily triggered by regulating river corridors. It's automatically triggered if you are in the FEMA floodplain map. Those two risk areas don't always overlap. Sometimes they do, but they don't always. So I hope, does that explain it for you?
Yeah, look, yeah. I understand.
I think the if
I
was
understand what
to-
you're saying.
So like the river corridor stuff is a planning mechanism. It is not a FEMA flood issue. Those are two separate
Two different
entities
things.
altogether.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I think that's
is
what you have to put around your head is that the river the river part is a planning tool.
It is a planning tool, but it's also the ones that are mapped, the river corridors that are mapped are going to be regulated by the DEC in areas where, it's not everything is already disturbed, and there's like I can think of like there's a stretch of river like going right through the middle of St. Johnsbury where it's all like concrete riprap. I mean, well, it's too late, but so it is a regulatory tool, but it's not a regulatory tool that's necessarily going to trigger the need for flood insurance on a federally backed mortgage. That was the motivation for a lot of our towns that joined the NFIP in the first place. Because they'd get a property owner who found that they couldn't sell a property unless, somebody paid for it in cash because they needed to get a federally, backed mortgage to be able to buy the property, and the bank wasn't going to give them that mortgage until they got flood insurance. So, banks do have the discretion, but they don't have the discretion to require it if you're in a mapped floodplain. If you're in a mapped floodplain, they have to require it. Does that make it clearer?
Yeah. No, I saw what happened at Cabot, and I mean the river rose there over 30 feet, right into the village center, and what happened there, and
Yeah.
they got hit hard. But when you're driving through the town and you're looking 30 feet down below, and that's where the stream is, it's hard
Yep.
to envision that actually happened there.
Yeah.
And all those people there now, I'm sure, are going to need some kind of flood insurance, because who's going to touch them?
Right. So, another thing, are you familiar with Hardwick, like the motel,
Yeah.
the inn by the river? The inn by the river was not on their old floodplain map. It wasn't on a floodplain. That wasn't what destroyed it. It was fluvial erosion. The bank collapsed
They just
underneath it.
collapse. Yep.
Yeah.
Same as our 10-mile square bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd never think that would get flooded out. I mean,
We have
but-
several. I'm still waiting on 3 of our culverts that are going through hazard mitigation right now to see if they will actually sign off on them, because they all 3 had to be replaced in the flood of 24, and they don't think that what we replaced is big enough.
Oh boy. Okay. So, one of the actions I'm assuming on the flood resilience program would be to update the hazard mitigation plan pronto.
Hazard mitigation plan it just was not in
Is it?
place at the at the time of the flood. You have to, in order to qualify for ERAF, it has to be within, you have to have it to a certain stage within 3 months of the date, and Noah
Yeah.
hadn't done that. And so it was not ready yet. And
Oh,
they
that's too
kicked it
bad
back at
because
me. I argued it as much as I could, and I didn't get anywhere.
that's too bad because we actually worked with a couple of towns where we had to throw one together pretty quickly, and it's not pretty. I mean, it's not a pretty process, and it's basically like eat, sleep, work on hazard mitigation plan for like 3 weeks. But
Yeah, I
we were
was, you know,
able
I was,
to.
it was, I was, 7 months after the flood when I started
Oh,
working on
okay,
it.
okay,
So,
that's okay,
it
yeah.
wasn't like something that he knew, they didn't document anything on our flooding. So
Oh, damn it.
it was
Okay.
too little too late. They told me that. They were like, sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, that won't happen again. So,
No, it will not.
okay. And in all fairness, a lot of our communities, when we talked about the ERAF reimbursement rate in the past, um, they weren't seeing the kinds of losses that we experienced in 2023 and 2024. So that extra 12.5% from the state didn't amount to much. But when you started seeing communities that exceeded millions of $1 million in losses, then you were looking at a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
so lessons learned. So that's
We
it.
got
But
partial, so at least that was a perk. Because we had we had everything else in place but hazard
okay,
mitigation. So
okay. What I could do is I know that our proposed regional plan is up there. I don't know where we stand on getting it adopted by the board. Um,
you got my vote.
I'm grateful for that. I can't make any guarantees anymore. But I don't think that anyone has disagreed. There's been very little disagreement about the content of the flood resilience element. So I'm happy to circulate that around to everyone. And I'll provide you the hyperlink to the website that has the draft plan in whole as well. But there are some concepts that I hope may do a better job of explaining than what I did just now. That's I think that flood resilience is one of the more challenging chapters to write in any plan because it gets very technical. But I also think that it's really important to make sure that communities understand what their options are for minimizing losses in the future. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Allison. Is there any other questions for Allison? Discussion? We'll see you next time then, Allison. I guess we're kind of not got a question here.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll
Uh,
follow up with the draft of the regional plan in the
Thank,
meantime, so you can look at that.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. See you
Thanks,
next time.
Allison.
Alrighty, bye.
Bye. Okay, so moving on to the zoning administrator recommendation to select board. And so I'm requesting a motion that we enter into executive session in order to conduct the zoning administrator candidate interviews and review their qualifications under the provisions of Title I, Section 313 of the Vermont statutes, finding that premature public knowledge would substantially disadvantage the town. So Katie and Bruce, oh, you're going to take the recording off, right, Mike, for us
Yeah.
for this executive session? Okay. And Bruce has to leave. Did he go? I don't know. I can't see.
Well, that
So
Bruce can
what?
stay for the first half of it because he's going to be he's your only candidate here to be interviewed.
True, true, True. Oh, so we can all just stay right here?
We can, yes, and I'll just stop
Okay.
the recording when
Stop the
once
recording.
you need. We can't yet. You haven't had nobody's made a
Motion.
first or a second on that.
Oh,
I'll
I
make a
did.
motion that we,
You can just say I make the motion. Will
yeah,
work.
I'll just make a motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good.
Okay, I will stop the.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we exit executive session.
Do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we're exiting executive session at what time? 6:14, and no action was taken. Is that good?
That's good. You're good.
Okay,
I
so,
told you you're gonna be a star.
oh, that was one line. Okay, so now we're back recording, so now we're back in session online, okay?
Yeah.
So,
All right. I'll make a motion that we
recommend.
recommend Bruce to be our zoning administrator.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so do I just say the motion was accepted and we're moving to the select board for appointment? Or is that just the way you?
Yeah, you're fine. When
Okay.
Katie does minutes, she should fix the language in there so that it's what I had written for you.
Okay,
Because you're recommending to the select board to
Right.
appoint him,
Correct.
because you guys
Right.
can't appoint him. They have to.
Right.
So
so
Yeah.
it just gets on the agenda? So does somebody is their meeting this Wednesday?
I will have them. So they're going to have a special meeting next Tuesday at
Okay.
noon. And I've already told them that it's going to be on there. So they're going to make the appointment based on your recommendation.
So nobody has to be there
You
present?
don't have to be there.
Okay.
Because we have literally a 10-minute meeting scheduled for next Tuesday. So because they have to sign some bank documents.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so the other thing that we were going to talk about was the Ginsburg property.
I would say the Derby Street property, you should try to refrain from using people's names
Sorry.
when you're on a recorded meeting.
Okay. Now that everybody heard that. Oh, okay. So what we're really talking about is they had the violation letter. They didn't respond to that within 30 days. We heard nothing, was certified, signature, nothing. So, I request a motion to ask the select board to authorize the funds necessary to pursue the legal action against the owners of the property at 560 Derby Street in order to correct the dilapidated structure violation that exists on the property. Does anybody talk about that? How you feel about that moving forward?
I guess my question is if we decide to do this, what is going to be the next step? That we're going to
The lawyer.
legally acquire the property.
Oh, well, you're not going to legally acquire it. You're going to have to
No.
go sue them for violation. This is a
Right.
long, drawn out process,
Yeah.
a
Oh,
long,
yeah,
drawn out,
I know it
expensive
is.
process. So
Right. So then what, as we go on with this, do we put attached the property, a lien on the property in order to pay for, to get the property to pay, to tear it down? So that
ultimately, the attorney will file a lien against the
Right.
property. Ultimately,
right. And that'll give us the rights to the property. Then after it's all been torn down, we can sell it. To
Well, we'll
recoup
give
our,
you-
lo-
the
to
thing is-
recoup our losses of tearing it down.
You would have to bill them for the loss, for tearing it down. And then if they didn't respond within so long, if I'm not right, then
yeah, you are right,
town
Billy.
could take it over.
Well, we'd have to go back to court. I mean, it's not like there is no easy we take over
No,
property ever.
there
No.
isn't.
This is probably 3 years, I bet you, minimum. If we're going down this road. So, and for this one, you guys somebody will have to go to the select board and sit and be able to answer their questions about this, because they're going to want to know how much money are we talking about. And because, our attorney is not cheap. You're looking at $350 an hour.
The other thing is also that you're gonna have to go through a process because the age of the house is so old that you're gonna have to have, before you even tear that place down, you're gonna have to test it for asbestos.
Oh, yeah.
Before you tear it down, you gotta have all this paperwork, and that's gonna cost money. And if they do find asbestos, then you're gonna have the asbestos removed by an asbestos certified company in order to be able to tear it down after, and then you got to separate everything, and there's a big process.
And the thing is, you know, I believe the first step with an attorney is the attorney will send a letter. They will send
Yeah.
the threatening letter. I would ask maybe the select board, as I mean, this is just my advice to you guys. You can do whatever you want because you're the planning commission. I have no role in this on this board. But my recommendation would be go to the select board and ask them for authorization to get the attorney to send them a letter to comply. Because sometimes that will be enough to spur people on, you know, the threat of a lawsuit.
Right.
And you know, you're probably not, you know, you're probably under $1,000 for that work to be done.
Ready to get
You
started.
know, right. Because if you go to them and say, you know, we want to be able to sue to take this property and clean it all up, they're going to say no.
No.
Because they're going to say, no, we're not spending $20,000 or $30,000 on legal fees for that particular law. So I would start small, and you can always go back after that, and you know, we
Just
figure
pick
out
at it.
what works. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least it's moving, you know, you like
Yeah.
you said, it's going to take 3 years, but you know, that'd be nice if that was.
And it's very possible that they want nothing to do with the property, and they're going to relinquish it and give it to the town.
That's what would be nice.
But
If the
then
lawyer,
then the liability is going to fall on the town as if somebody gets hurt in there. Correct, Mike?
It would, but we have insurance for that. And we
Oh, yeah.
would, you know, if the town obtained the property, we would probably just go and tear it down. You know, we would do the permits and get it torn down, and then we'd sell it
Yeah.
off and recoup our money.
Yep.
Well, the
It's
first thing we're
It's going
gonna
to be a long process.
have to find out is if she's in a nursing home,
Oh, the lawyer will find that out.
because
yeah,
then
the lawyer will do a little better job of checking on, you know, who to get
Yeah.
a hold of and making sure that they're because there'll actually be an in-person service. When an attorney sends a letter, they'll send the sheriff out to serve the letter. It won't be by mail.
and he'll have the right address, because obviously we don't know where she is, and she might be in a resting home, but the power of attorney should have gotten that, because that the mail forwards to whoever's the power of attorney. I don't understand why they're
If
not.
it's set up, you know.
Yeah.
did they sign for it?
No, we didn't get anything back.
Well, you should have got a letter back saying they didn't sign for it.
Well, according to Teresa, she said that they didn't get anything.
'Cause
I'm
if
pretty
they-
sure
if
it
they-
was one with signature.
It's registered mail, return
Yep.
receipt.
Certified, yeah. It should be
Yes.
certified with a little green card. It should have
Yeah.
been sent that way.
Yeah, there should have been
whatever.
someone come back saying they didn't sign for it.
Well, I'd have to check with Teresa. I'm pretty sure that's the way it went. I remember Nick talking about that, but I don't know for sure. But I did check with Teresa before about whether they had responded, and she said no. And she would obviously tell us if they did.
Oh, yeah.
So,
No, she'd hide it from you, Annie.
no, I know, no. Well, I just wanted to make sure I had the right information. So,
Just realize that some of us probably won't be here anymore by the time this is all said and done.
right, exactly.
True.
Right. So Mike, on that Tuesday at noon, we're doing that, you're gonna present the,
Not
huh?
only zoning administrator. The legal thing that'll be on the next select board meeting.
Okay,
That
so
won't be
that's,
that won't be on Tuesday.
oh, okay, this is just for Bruce. Okay, for the
Right.
next meeting, okay.
Right, because we're under a deadline because we're going to be without a zoning administrator as of April 30th, and there'll
Right.
be nobody to sign permits or COs after that.
Right, yeah,
Because we found out the last time, nobody can step in and do that. It has to be the zoning administrator. So
right, yeah, that's why we got Nick.
Or the assistant zoning administrator.
Yes.
we don't have
part-time.
one.
We don't have one, so
We don't have any zoning administrator once he resigns. So that's why we need to get somebody appointed on Tuesday.
now, is that tomorrow or a week
Next
from tomorrow?
Tuesday. A week from tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay,
So I
so,
guess you have to see, are you pursuing your motion here? Is somebody seconding it? And are you guys gonna vote on it?
oh, for the
The
560
request
Derby Street?
fund. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Are you guys going to move forward with that or not?
Well,
I'd make a motion that we would, send it to the select board and ask them to have a lawyer write the letter to whoever is handling the property.
well, with a lawyer to find out who's legally responsible.
Yeah,
To
that's what I
start
said,
it.
who's handling the
Yeah.
property?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they're making that into a motion?
I did make it into a motion.
All right, I'll second it.
All in favor?
All
Aye.
right.
Okay, so that will be taken care of.
Yes, and I'll try to remember to put that on the agenda. Katie, if you see me put on the agenda without it on there, yell at me.
I'll remind you, Mike.
Sure will.
I'll remind you, Mike.
That's a week away yet. I won't do that till Friday.
God. Okay, so moving on, just approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes to the previous meeting.
Second. Mark, second it.
You second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Next is other business. We're good. So making a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All right, end of meeting. Thank you.